Tonight you'll hear the story of Caligula, Rome's third emperor who became its darkest terror. He was born Gaius Caesar, son of the legendary Roman general Germanicus, great-grandson of Emperor Augustus, and heir to a realm without equal. Soldiers once dressed him in tiny boots and called him Caligula, Little Boots. But the boy raised among Rome's legions would one day become its nightmare. At first, Caligula seemed to be hope reborn. He pardoned prisoners and filled the city with celebration. Statues rose in his honor. His face adorned the coinage. The crowds hailed him as their savior. Then came the fever. When it broke, something else had broken too. He started to build temples to his own divinity, threatened to make his horse a consul, and ordered his troops to wage war upon the sea. One by one, his allies disappeared. Citizens whispered his name only in fear. Was he mad? Or did Rome simply see reflected back the cruelty it had always worshipped? Tonight, we trace the real man behind Emperor Caligula, the ruler who claimed godhood and made the city into his personal theatre. Before we begin, if you enjoy drifting through history's most haunting stories, remember to like this video and subscribe for more. Now dim the lights and close your eyes. Imagine Rome's torchlight flickering in the dark as we step back 2,000 years to the Palatine Games where celebration turned to dread. Chapter 1. The Feast of Blood and Gold. When gods grow silent, mortals hold their breath, for silence is the prelude sung by death. It's January 24th, AD 41. The Palatine Games are underway to honor Rome's deified emperor, Divus Augustus. Outside the theater, acrobats flip through the air while drummers pound out rhythms that shake the ground. Thousands pack the seats, cheering for blood and spectacle. But inside the marble corridors connecting theater to palace, a different kind of performance is about to begin. There is a covered gallery, cool and shadowed despite the midday sun. Torches flicker in bronze holders. The air tastes like perfume, sweat, and something metallic you can't quite name. Footsteps echo against stone. And walking at the center of it all is the Emperor Caligula, surrounded by attendants, secretaries, and armored members of the Praetorian Guard. The Emperor is 28 years old, in the 4th year of his reign, and he's playing his favorite game. A senator steps forward, nervous hands clutching a scroll of poetry he's written to praise the Emperor. Caligula listens with a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. When the man finishes, trembling, Caligula asks him to recite it again. Slower this time. The senator obeys. His voice cracks on the 3rd line. Caligula laughs, not cruelly, almost gently, which somehow makes it worse. Next comes a man from the equestrian order, wealthy landowner, an officer one step below the Senate. This man kneels and offers a petition, something about disputed property. Caligula doesn't even look at the document. He just asks one question. Do you love me more than your family? The man hesitates, just for a heartbeat. Caligula's smile widens. I thought so, the emperor says softly. Guards step forward. The man is led away. Nobody asks where. Nobody ever asks. A widow approaches, hands shaking as she pours a sacred offering of wine onto the marble floor. It splashes red against white stone, spreading in thin lines like veins. She's praying for her son's safety. Caligula watches the wine pool at his feet. He tells her the gods are listening. She wants to believe him. She has to believe him. Because in Rome, the emperor isn't just a man. He's become something else entirely. Something that whispers to statues and hears them whisper back. The procession moves deeper into the gallery. Petitioners press close, desperate for a glance, a word, anything that might save them or their families. Power in Rome isn't about armies or laws anymore. It's about this: one man's mood, one man's smile, one man deciding, moment by moment, who lives and who disappears. In the crush of bodies, someone's hand drops to their waist. Fingers curl around something hidden beneath a fold of cloth. The air feels heavier now, thicker, like a storm gathering strength. Caligula turns to one of his Praetorian tribunes, Cassius Chaerea. He's a veteran soldier, scarred, silent, and serious. For months, Caligula has mocked him, called him weak, unmanly, given him obscene watchwords to repeat in front of the entire guard. Today is no different. Caligula extends his hand to be kissed, then twists it in that familiar, degrading gesture. Laughter ripples through the attendants. Chaerea's jaw tightens. His eyes go dead, but he says nothing. He never says anything. In that moment, steel whispers free from its sheath. The blade rises in the half-light. Torchlight catches the edge. Caligula turns, still smiling, as though he's been waiting for this all along. But to understand how Rome arrived at this moment, how an emperor could inspire such hatred in his own guard, we must go back. Back to before the madness, before the crown, before the name that would echo through history as a warning. To a quiet shore at Antium, where a child is born under the weight of divine blood and a soldier's destiny. His name is Gaius Julius Caesar Germanicus, but the world will know him only as Caligula. Chapter 2: The Child of Gods and Ghosts. A soldier's son beneath the eagle's wing learns first to smile, then not to feel a thing. The year is AD 12, and in the coastal town of Antium, south of Rome, a baby screams his arrival into the world. His name is Gaius Julius Caesar, though the name Germanicus, his father's honorific, soon follows him. His mother, Agrippina the Elder, granddaughter of Augustus, through his daughter Julia and Marcus Agrippa. His father, Germanicus, the rising star of Rome's armies, a man soldiers would one day die for without hesitation. This child is born into a bloodline that touches the gods themselves. But in Rome, that's less like a gift and more like a target painted on your back. Meet little Gaius. He's just a baby, crying, hungry, loved. But love in the imperial family has an expiration date. A few years later, after Augustus's death, in AD 14, Germanicus is appointed commander on the Rhine frontier, where Roman legions guard the empire's edge against Germanic tribes. It's brutal, cold, muddy, dangerous. Young Gaius toddles through the military camps, surrounded by hardened soldiers. These rough men who kill for a living look at this tiny boy, and something in them softens. They dress him in miniature army boots called caligi, little boots, and nickname him Caligula. One night, around the campfire, a grizzled veteran hoists the boy onto his shoulders. Look at him. Little Boots marches with us. The men roar with laughter and approval. The child giggles, waving a wooden sword. The name is supposed to be cute, affectionate, but jokes have a way of becoming prophecies. Picture the scene. Campfires at night, the clang of swords being sharpened, the smell of cooking meat and leather and sweat. Little Caligula runs between the tents, learning their songs, their oaths, the way they speak about enemies and loyalty. His first teachers aren't philosophers or poets, they're killers. Meanwhile, in Rome, politics simmers like poison. Germanicus's popularity makes Emperor Tiberius nervous. The Senate whispers Germanicus's name when they think no one is listening. His wife Agrippina knows it. She's sharp, ambitious, unafraid. At one banquet, she watches a senator toast her husband, then sees him slip a note to a courier in the shadows. She says nothing. But the next morning, that senator's villa is quietly searched. Nothing is found. Nothing needs to be. The message is sent. She teaches her children that Rome is a stage where every gesture is performance, and every smile might hide a blade. Young Gaius absorbs all of this. Military discipline from the camps, paranoia from his mother. He learns that silence outlives fury, that showing emotion is showing weakness. He's 6 years old. Then comes AD 19. Germanicus, sent east 2 years earlier to restore order and deal with Armenia and Parthia, now commands in Syria. The governor of Syria, Gnaeus Calpurnius Piso, appointed by Tiberius, hates Germanicus. The two clash constantly, publicly, violently. Then Germanicus falls ill, suddenly at first, then worsening over days. His body fails in ways that don't make sense. He accuses Piso of poisoning him. When servants search his bedroom, they find cursed tablets sealed inside the walls. Lead sheets scratched with spells meant to drain life and will. Some are stained with what looks like dried blood. Others bear his name carved backwards, the way you write a death curse. Agrippina is at his side in Antioch. She watches her husband deteriorate, helpless against whatever force is consuming him from within. She holds his hand as his fever burns. She listens as he rasps out his accusations against Piso, insisting with his final breaths that he's been poisoned and betrayed. When Germanicus dies, she doesn't scream. Not yet. She's surrounded by Syrian officials, watching her, measuring her reaction. She holds herself together like a statue, carved from marble and rage. They cremate him in Antioch's forum. The smoke rises into the eastern sky as the crowds gather to mourn Rome's golden prince. Agrippina stands perfectly still as the flames consume what remains of her husband, her protector, the father of her children. She collects his ashes herself, places the urn in her own hands, and begins the long journey home. The voyage back to Italy is a funeral procession across the Mediterranean. At every port, word has already spread. Germanicus is dead. When her ship finally reaches Brundisium, the port is thick with mourners. Agrippina descends the gangplank carrying the urn. Her children walk behind her in their mourning clothes. Young Gaius is 7 years old, watching his mother transform grief into theatre, into weapon. The crowd erupts, not with cheers, but with wails of loss. They reach toward her, toward the ashes of the man they loved more than the emperor who still lives. This public mourning is a political act, and everyone knows it. Gaius stands nearby, watching. He doesn't cry. He doesn't move. He just stares at his mother as she holds his father's remains above her head, showing Rome what has been taken from them. Later, when the house is quiet and the urn sits in its place of honor, Gaius asks her a question. "Mother, what does it feel like when the gods stop listening?" She looks at her son with his two old eyes. She has no answer. Agrippina demands justice. She accuses Piso publicly. The trial becomes a spectacle. Piso kills himself before the verdict. Agrippina has made herself loud, visible, dangerous. Tiberius watches from the shadows. He sees a woman who won't bow, a family the people love more than they love him. One by one, Agrippina's allies disappear. Her eldest sons, Nero and Drusus, are arrested on charges of treason. Exiled and broken, Agrippina is sent to a barren island, where she starves herself to death in AD 33, rather than give Tiberius the satisfaction of execution. And young Gaius, he survives, because he's learned to be silent, obedient, invisible, at family dinners while his brothers rage about injustice. Gaius smiles and says nothing. When asked about his mother's fate, he praises Tiberius's wisdom. His brothers call him a coward. They die in prison. He lives, until the day a messenger arrives with an imperial summons. Tiberius wants him on Capri, the emperor's private island, his palace above the sea. It's called an honor. Everyone knows it's a cage. Gaius is 18, nearly 19. His father is dead. His mother is dead. His brothers are dead. And now he sails toward an island where people arrive but rarely leave. The cliffs of Capri rise from the water like teeth. Does he climb them to become Rome's future? Or does he sail to his tomb? Chapter 3. The Island of Fear. Where marble meets the sea and shadows reign, the young learn silence, the old teach pain. It is AD 31. The island of Capri rises from the Tyrrhenian Sea like a fortress built by the gods themselves. At the summit stands Villa Jovis, Emperor Tiberius's clifftop palace, marble terraces, gardens that smell like jasmine and salt air, views that stretch to the horizon. But paradise has a body count. Enter Gaius Julius Caesar Germanicus, 18 years old. He steps off the boat onto Capri's rocky shore. The soldiers escorting him don't meet his eyes. They lead him up winding paths carved into the cliff face, past checkpoints where Praetorian guards watch everything and say nothing. The villa sprawls across the mountaintop like a spider's web, and at the center, Emperor Tiberius, 71 years old, rules Rome from this isolated throne. A secretary meets Gaius at the entrance. He explains the rules without looking up. Gaius will have quarters in the east wing. He will dine when summoned. He will speak when spoken to. He will leave when permitted, which is to say, never. Gaius nods, smiles, thanks him for the emperor's generosity. The words taste like ash, but he's had years of practice swallowing them. That first night, he lies awake listening. Footsteps in distant hallways, whispered conversations that stop when doors open. Somewhere, someone is crying. The sound carries through the marble like a ghost refusing to leave. He's been here 6 hours and already knows the truth. This isn't a palace. It's a trap with expensive furniture. Tiberius summons him at odd hours. Midnight, dawn, 3 in the afternoon, when the sun turns the villa into an oven. The emperor asks strange questions. What did Gaius's mother say about him before she died? Does Gaius dream about his father? Has anyone approached him with treasonous proposals? Gaius answers carefully, truthfully when it doesn't matter, strategically when it does. Tiberius doesn't want honesty. He wants performance. The villa operates on fear. Servants move like shadows. Courtiers arrive with smiles and leave in chains, or don't leave at all. Messages arrive by boat at dusk. By morning, someone's quarters are empty, their name already forgotten. One morning, Gaius passes a man in the corridor, a senator from Gaul, nervous but hopeful. That afternoon, the man joins Tiberius for lunch on the terrace. By evening, guards are carrying his belongings to the boat. The senator isn't with them. No one asks where he went. Everyone knows. over the cliff, into the sea. The rocks below don't leave witnesses. Gaius watches. He learns which guards are loyal, which secretaries keep the real records, which courtiers are informants and which are just terrified. He maps every corridor, every exit, every place where someone might vanish. At dinner one night, Tiberius asks what he thinks of Sejanus, the former Praetorian prefect executed for treason earlier that year. It's a trap disguised as conversation.
I think,
Gaius says carefully,
that loyalty is the highest virtue, and betrayal deserves no mercy.
Tiberius smiles. It doesn't reach his eyes. Your father said something similar once before his command in Syria. The implication hangs in the air like poison gas, but Gaius just nods.
My father was wise.
Your father was loved too much. Dangerous thing, being loved too much. Gaius meets his eyes.
Then I'll be careful not to make that mistake.
For a moment, something almost like respect flickers across the old emperor's face. Almost. Months pass. Gaius becomes part of the scenery, always present, never noticed. He attends banquets where courtiers perform their loyalty while plotting betrayals. He watches Tiberius toy with senators the way a cat toys with wounded mice. Late one night, Gaius can't sleep. The heat is oppressive. He wanders the corridors, moving quietly, just another shadow among shadows. He rounds a corner and sees torchlight flickering through an open doorway. Curiosity pulls him forward. He shouldn't look. He looks anyway. Inside, a dining table is set for two. Elegant plates, fine wine, candles burning low. One chair is occupied by a man in a senator's toga, slumped forward, face down on the table. The food untouched, the wine undrunk. Gaius steps closer. The man isn't moving, isn't breathing, has been dead for hours, maybe longer. But someone set this table, lit these candles, arranged this corpse like a dinner guest who fell asleep. From somewhere deeper in the villa, echoing through marble halls, comes the sound of laughter, dry, wheezing, ancient. Tiberius. Gaius backs out slowly. His heart hammers, but his face stays calm. He returns to his quarters and doesn't sleep. The next morning, a secretary summons him to breakfast with the emperor in the same dining room. The corpse is gone. The table is reset. Fresh flowers perfume the air. Tiberius sits in the same chair where the dead man slumped. He gestures to the other seat. Join me, young Caesar. We have much to discuss about your future. Gaius sits. The plate in front of him still has a faint stain he recognizes. Tiberius pours wine into both cups. Tell me, the old emperor says, eyes glittering with something that might be madness or might be a test. Do you sleep well on my island? Years stretch ahead. The waiting, the watching, the wondering which day will be his last. And all the while, one question burns in his mind. Will Tiberius make him heir or make him disappear? Chapter 4. The Heir of Shadows. When death's cold hand releases its grip at last, a student rises from the lessons of the past. It is AD 35. In the marble corridors of the Palatine Palace in Rome, a document is being prepared. Sealed, witnessed, the kind of document that reshapes empires. Emperor Tiberius, still ruling from his island retreat on Capri, has made his decision. His will names two heirs, Gaius Julius Caesar Germanicus and Tiberius Gemellus, the emperor's grandson, still in his mid-teens. Joint heirs, co-emperors, sharing power equally. It sounds like an honor. It's actually a death sentence in slow motion, because Rome has never endured two emperors at once. Someone always ends up dead. The only question is who and when. Gaius receives the news on Capri. A secretary reads the imperial decree aloud while Gaius stands perfectly still, face composed, showing nothing. Inside, his mind races. Tiberius Gemellus is young, inexperienced, easily influenced, but he's also Tiberius's actual blood. That matters in Rome. Blood always matters. This isn't succession, it's a test, maybe even a trap. Gaius bows, thanks the emperor for his generosity, and says all the right words in all the right tones. Then he goes back to waiting, watching, surviving one day at a time. The years stretch like torture as AD 35 bleeds into AD 36, then into AD 37. Gaius is 24 years old, still alive, still walking the villa's corridors, still dining with an emperor who sets places for corpses. One night, Tiberius compels Gaius to witness an execution. A senator accused of conspiracy. The man is thrown from the cliffs. Tiberius watches, doesn't blink, doesn't speak, just watches until the screaming stops. Then he turns to Gaius. You see? This is what it takes. Gaius nods. His face reveals nothing, but something is changing. Tiberius is aging, badly. His hands shake, his voice cracks. The villa's atmosphere grows heavier, like a storm that won't break. Then comes March 16th, AD 37. Tiberius is travelling back from Capri toward Rome, stopping at his villa in Misenum on the Bay of Naples. He's been sick, coughing, feverish, weak. Gaius is there. So is Naevius Sutorius Macro, the Praetorian prefect and commander of Rome's imperial guard. They wait. Everyone waits. In the afternoon, Tiberius collapses. The air smells of sweat and sickness and fear. Physicians rush in, courtiers whisper in corners. Gaius stands near the doorway, watching, calculating, preparing for whatever comes next. Word spreads through the villa. The emperor is dead. The room exhales. Years of tension release in a single moment. Gaius Caesar is emperor, the student of Tiberius, the boy who survived Capri. Macro approaches him, kneels. Hail, Caesar. Others follow. One by one, the courtiers, the guards, the secretaries. They kneel before Gaius Julius Caesar Germanicus, now Imperator, now Augustus, now the ruler of Rome. Then, from the bedchamber, a sound, movement, a cough. Tiberius isn't dead. He's waking up. The room freezes. Every person who just declared loyalty to Gaius is now guilty of treason. Every knee that bent, every word spoken, all of it can be twisted into conspiracy, rebellion, premature celebration of the emperor's death. Gaius doesn't move. His face stays perfectly calm, but his mind is screaming. Someone has to act. Someone has to decide. Macro moves first. He walks into the bedchamber. Moments later, the movement stops. The coughing stops. Everything stops. Macro emerges. His face reveals nothing. The emperor is dead. This time, no one doubts it. Gaius becomes emperor, not co-emperor, not joint heir. The Senate in Rome voids the provision for Tiberius Gemellus within hours. They declare Gaius sole ruler, Gaius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, the people's choice, the heir of the great Germanicus, the boy who wore little boots and grew into a god. Rome erupts in celebration. After decades of Tiberius's paranoid rule, from a distant island. They have a young emperor, handsome, charming, connected to the legendary Germanicus, the grandson of Agrippa and great-grandson of Augustus himself. Statues go up overnight. Temples prepare sacrifices. The Senate falls over itself declaring honors. Thousands of animals are sacrificed in thanksgiving. The streets run with wine and blood and joy. Gaius returns to Rome in triumph. The crowds cheer his name. They throw flowers. They weep with relief. After the darkness of Tiberius, Gaius looks like sunlight. He rides through the forum, acknowledging the crowds with a raised hand and a practiced smile. Smile, everything a Roman emperor should be. Everything Rome has been waiting for. That night, Gaius stands alone in the imperial apartments of the Palatine Palace. His palace now, his Rome now, his empire now. Servants light the lamps. Guards take position outside his door. Courtiers await in corridors for his first commands. All of Rome holds its breath, wondering what kind of emperor their savior will become. Gaius walks to the window. Below, the city celebrates. Torches blaze, music echoes, laughter rises through the darkness. He has spent 6 years on Capri. 6 years on Capri taught him every trick, every trap, every method of ruling through fear and breaking men without laying a hand on them. The question burning in every Roman heart tonight is simple. Will Gaius become the merciful emperor they pray for, or will he become the monster who taught him? Chapter 5. When Rome Rejoiced. The tyrant falls, the young god wakes, and Rome forgets what freedom takes. It's AD 37, and Rome is holding its breath. For 22 years, Tiberius ruled from his island retreat like a spider in a web. His reign was paranoia wrapped in purple, treason trials, informers, bodies thrown from cliffs. The Senate met in silence, terrified that even nodding might be remembered as conspiracy. Then, on March 16th, AD 37, the emperor dies at Misenum. The news hits Rome like a thunderclap. People pour into the streets. They don't mourn. They celebrate. Someone shouts, "Tiberius to the Tiber," and the crowd roars with laughter. It's the sound of relief, raw and desperate, like exhaling after holding your breath underwater. And now comes Caligula, 24 years old, golden-haired, the son of Germanicus, Rome's beloved general who died young amid whispers of poisoning. Blood doesn't get more imperial than this. When he enters Rome, the city loses its mind. Trumpets blaze across the forum. Flowers rain from balconies. Women weep. Old veterans salute. The boy they remember from the Rhine camps, the little soldier who once wore the army's caligae, has returned as Caesar. His nickname, Caligula, means little boot. Rome whispers it like a prayer. His first acts feel like miracles. He orders every treason dossier brought to the forum. Thousands of scrolls containing names, accusations, and confessions extracted under torture. The evidence of Tiberius's terror machine. Caligula has them stacked in a massive pile while the city watches. Then he orders them burned. The smoke rises black and thick. It smells like parchment and fear and redemption. People stand transfixed, watching years of paranoia curl into ash. When the flames die, prisoners walk free. Political exiles return home. Chains clatter to the ground. Men embrace wives they thought they'd never see again. An elderly senator kneels in the forum and weeps openly. He'd been on Tiberius's list. Everyone knew it. Now his name is smoke and he's alive. Caligula stands on the rostra, and addresses the people and Senate gathered in the forum. His voice carries clear and young across the crowd. The shadows are gone. We begin again. The Senate erupts. Not the nervous clapping of Tiberius's reign, real applause, the kind that comes from believing you've been saved. The celebrations don't stop. Games flood the streets. Gladiators fight from dawn to dusk. Chariots race until their wheels glow with heat. Caligula pays for it all, opening the imperial treasury like it's a toy box. Coins shower the crowds. Citizens scramble and laugh, pockets heavy with silver stamped with his face. He restores a measure of the elections that Tiberius had taken from the people. He recalls exiles. He honors his family's memory with ceremonies that feel like worship. When he speaks of his father Germanicus, grown men cry. When he mentions his mother Agrippina, who starved herself to death in exile, senators bow their heads in shame. This is what Rome wanted. A young emperor who smiles, who remembers he's human, who walks among them without a dozen bodyguards, who doesn't suspect every whisper is treason. For 6 months, it is almost perfect. Then October arrives. Caligula collapses. Nobody sees it coming. One day he's presiding over games, vibrant and laughing. The next, he's burning with fever, delirious, barely breathing. The palace physicians swarm his bedchamber. They try everything: herbs, prayers, bloodletting. Nothing works. Rome panics. The Senate declares a day of public fasting. Temples overflow with offerings. Old women pray until their knees bleed. Veterans vow to sacrifice their lives if the gods will spare him. The senator, Junius Silanus, publicly vows to fight as a gladiator if Caligula survives. The city holds its breath again, but this time it's different. This time they're praying for what they've already lost once. Days pass. The fever rages. Rumors spread like plague. He's dying. He's dead. The gods are punishing Rome for something. After nearly 2 weeks, the fever breaks. Caligula opens his eyes, drinks water, and speaks. The physicians weep with relief. Messengers run through the streets shouting the news. Rome erupts again. More games, more celebrations. The emperor lives. The nightmare is over. But something is wrong. The palace staff notice it first. Caligula walks differently now. His eyes focus on things that aren't there. He laughs at silence. He speaks to empty rooms, waiting for answers. One night, a chamberlain finds him alone in the hall of the emperors, standing before his father's marble statue. The young emperor tilts his head, listening.
They know my name,
Caligula says.
The statues, they have been saying it all along.
The chamberlain freezes. Caesar, perhaps you should rest. Caligula laughs, softly at first, then louder. The sound bounces off marble, amplifying, filling the hall. And the echo laughs back. The chamberlain stumbles backward, retreating down the corridor. Behind closed doors, he tells the other servants what he heard. They exchange glances. Nobody sleeps well that night. Because the emperor who saved Rome from darkness now walks through the palace at midnight, conversing with stone. And when morning comes, he doesn't stop. The lamps burn continuously. Musicians camp outside his chambers, waiting for commands that come at random hours. Courtiers arrive for breakfast and stay until dawn, trapped in performances they never rehearsed. The palace becomes a stage that never closes, and everyone inside it has forgotten their lines. Chapter 6. The Sickbed Miracle. The fever breaks, but something wakes inside. a mortal healed, a god who will not hide. It is AD 38. The imperial palace has become a place where sleep is a luxury nobody can afford. The recovery is official. Caligula walks, he eats, he smiles. But the palace staff know something the Senate does not. The man who woke from that fever is not quite the same man who fell into it. The lamps never go out now. Corridors blaze with torchlight until dawn. Oil smoke stains the marble ceilings. Servants carry fresh amphorae in endless rotation, like ants feeding a colony that never rests. Musicians camp outside Caligula's chambers, instruments clutched in their laps. You never know when the emperor will call. The command comes without warning, and you perform or you disappear. One flute player yawns during a midnight concert. Caligula notices. He tells the man gently to rest, and the musician is never seen again. The message spreads fast. Stay awake, stay alert, stay entertaining. Courtiers arrive for breakfast and get trapped in performances that stretch until the next sunrise. A theatrical reading of Homer continues for 12 hours. Senators take turns reciting, voices cracking, throats raw. When one man's voice gives out, Caligula has him removed and brings in a replacement. It's not cruelty. It's worse. It's enthusiasm without limits. The Senate learns to play along. They laugh before he finishes his jokes, and they applaud his poetry, even when it does not rhyme. Caligula once tells the Senate that the moon spoke to him, saying the sea misses him. No one dares to question it. Agree quickly, never question. But the real problem isn't the performances, it's the money. The imperial treasury is hemorrhaging gold. Those games when he first became emperor, the coins showered on crowds. All of it came from somewhere. And now he's not stopping. He commissions new temples. He orders festivals. He gives gifts to anyone who flatters him well. A senator praises his voice. Here's a villa. His advisors try to explain the problem. The treasury needs time to recover. Caligula listens patiently. Then he invents new taxes. But he's clever. He doesn't call them taxes. He calls them honors. A contribution to imperial majesty. A voluntary offering for divine protection. The Senate approves them because refusing would suggest you don't care about the emperor's well-being. Everyone knows the walls have ears now, literally. Caligula presses his ear against doors, listening to conversations in adjacent rooms. He catches two officials whispering about grain shipments. Bursting in, Caligula accuses them of plotting.
Everything is about me,
He declares.
The grain feeds Rome and Rome belongs to me.
The men bow and live another day. And then Caligula starts talking about the gods differently. It begins subtly. He begins referring to Jupiter in the first person.
I sent the rain last week,
He says. People assume it's a joke. They laugh nervously. But he doesn't laugh back. He receives visitors while wearing a golden wreath, seated on an elevated throne surrounded by incense. When senators come before him, he extends his hand like a priest.
Do you feel it?
Caligula asks.
Since the fever, the gods opened a door, and I walk through. I am the gods.
Silence fills the chamber. Those who hear it bow lower and whisper their agreement. That night, at a midnight banquet, something happens that nobody can explain. The dining hall is full. Tables overflow with roasted boar, fresh figs, wine from Greece. Caligula presides at the head, reclining on purple cushions. Then he signals for silence. Servants place 2 golden cups before him, one in front of Caligula, one in front of an empty couch beside him. Everyone stares. At a midnight banquet, Caligula lifts a cup toward an empty couch.
To my honored guest,
he says, and drinks. Then he laughs softly, as though answering a voice only he can hear. The silence stretches like a bowstring pulled too tight. He rises suddenly and declares,
tomorrow we perform the sacred rites. Only the worthy may attend.
He doesn't explain what rites. He doesn't say who's worthy. But as the guests file out, they pass a doorway leading to the palace gardens. Through the opening, they glimpse something that makes them walk faster, eyes forward, mouths shut. Later that night, he stands beneath the stars beside his sister Drusilla, her silk gown catching the moonlight. They're alone, too close, speaking in whispers. Those who glimpse them say nothing, to each other, to their wives, or to their gods when they pray that night. Because in Rome, some things are too dangerous to name. Chapter 7. The Goddess and the God. When stars bear witness, mortals kneel, and blood-bound love becomes unreal. It is AD 38, and the imperial palace gardens lie under starlight. The air smells like jasmine and something darker. Incense, maybe, or fear. Drusilla walks beside her brother through paths lined with marble statues. She's 22 years old, beautiful in the way that makes poets nervous and senators quiet. But it's not her beauty that makes the courtiers whisper. It's how Caligula looks at her. They've always been close. She had visited him on Capri during Tiberius's final years, witnessing the same paranoia and isolation that shaped them both. But something has shifted since the fever. Tonight, the garden is empty except for them. Caligula ordered everyone out. Guards stand at the entrances with their backs turned, pretending not to hear. What happens here is not for witnesses. Caligula stops beside a fountain where moonlight shatters on water. He speaks softly about gods who take their sisters for wives, about rules that no longer apply to him. The thought hangs in the air like smoke from a funeral pyre. Whatever Drusilla feels, she hides behind the mask she's worn since childhood. The mask that kept her alive under Tiberius. They perform rites that blend Egyptian custom with Roman ritual, and something entirely their own. Something Caligula invents as he goes, guided by voices only he hears. Incense burns in golden braziers. Red wine stains their lips. They speak vows under starlight that would horrify priests and senators alike. Whether it's marriage or blasphemy or madness, no one outside the garden will ever know. Because those who see it learn quickly that survival depends on forgetting. But the rumors start anyway. They spread like fever through the palace, whispered in corridors, hinted at in letters, never spoken aloud where guards might hear. The emperor and his sister, too close, too often alone. Courtiers begin calling them Jupiter and Juno, divine siblings ruling Olympus, safer names for what they dare not describe. Every senator who survived Tiberius by keeping quiet now faces a new emperor who claims divinity and treats his sister like a wife. They smile and call them divine, because the alternative is noticing, and noticing gets you killed. One senator makes the mistake of looking uneasy at a banquet, where Caligula seats Drusilla at his side. He doesn't say anything. He just shifts in his seat. Caligula sees it. The senator disappears 3 days later. When gods ascend on mortal breath, what altar dares to bargain death? Drusilla becomes something unprecedented in Rome. Not quite empress, though Caligula already has a wife from an earlier union. Yet Drusilla occupies a place no wife ever held. She attends state functions. She receives embassies. Foreign kings bow to her like she wears a crown. Caligula has coins minted with her face, placing her beside the goddesses. Temples receive offerings in her name. It's unprecedented. It's shocking. It's exactly what Caligula wants. He's testing Rome, pushing boundaries, and Rome, terrified and exhausted, bends with him. The Senate passes decrees honoring Drusilla. They compare her to Venus, to Ceres, to every goddess they can remember. It's survival dressed as worship. But beneath the official praise, Rome seethes. In taverns and markets, people whisper the truth. Actors perform plays with thinly veiled references. Poets write verses that can be read two ways. The anger is there, but it's underground. Caligula knows it. He feels the city's hatred rising like heat from sun-baked stone. And he doesn't care. Maybe the resistance proves his divinity. Gods inspire fear and worship. Mortals inspire neither. One night, Drusilla sits beside him on the palace balcony. Below them, Rome spreads out in darkness. Staring at the city, Caligula murmurs, "Love ends. Fear does not." Drusilla draws her silk wrap closer and shivers. Over the next days, palace staff notice changes. Drusilla moves slower through corridors. She picks at her food. Her skin drains of color, turning pale as marble. The physicians are summoned. They whisper diagnoses that satisfy no one. A fever, they say. A chill. An imbalance of humors. Caligula orders them to fix it. But Drusilla keeps fading. Her steps grow heavier. Her breath comes shorter. The woman who walked through gardens under starlight now struggles to cross a room. The palace watches in silence. Guards exchange glances. Servants whisper prayers. Everyone feels it. The weight of something approaching that cannot be stopped. And in the gardens where they perform their rites beneath the stars, the incense has gone cold. The braziers sit empty. It is said that in Rome, even gods cannot stop what is coming. Chapter 8. The Death of Drusilla. When fever takes what love could not, the god remembers he forgot. June 10th, AD 38. Inside the imperial apartments of Rome, the curtains are drawn. Physicians move through darkness like ghosts. Incense smoke hangs thick in the air, but it cannot mask the smell underneath. Sickness, sweat, fear. Drusilla is dying. It has been weeks since she first weakened. The best physicians in Rome have tried everything. Bloodletting, herbs from Egypt, prayers to Asclepius. Nothing works. Her body burns with fever, then shivers with cold. She cannot keep food down. Her skin stretches tight over bones that sharpen by the day. When she coughs, servants turn away, terrified. Some whisper plague, others poison, and a few claim the gods themselves are punishing what happened in the garden. Caligula refuses to leave her side. He sits beside her bed for hours, holding her hand, speaking to her even when she cannot respond. Palace officials try to summon him for matters of state. He ignores them. Rome's business grinds to a halt while the emperor watches his sister die. Caligula grips her hand and whispers, "You cannot leave." The gods would not dare. But the gods are not listening. As the sun climbs toward noon on June 10th, Drusilla's breathing changes. It becomes shallow, irregular. The physicians exchange glances. This is the end. He leans close and commands, "Stay." I command it. Her chest rises, falls, rises again, weaker, then stops. The room goes silent. One physician checks for breath, for pulse, for any sign of life. He finds none. Slowly, he steps back and bows his head. Drusilla is dead. Caligula does not move. He sits holding her hand as it grows cold, staring at her face as though sheer force of will might pull her back. The physicians wait. The servants wait. Nobody dares break the silence. At last, Caligula stands and walks out without a word, down the corridor, through the palace, out into the gardens where they perform their rites under starlight, and he vanishes. For 3 days, no one sees the Emperor of Rome. Guards search the palace. Officials check the temples. The Senate convenes in emergency session, terrified that they have lost their emperor the same day they lost his sister. He is not dead or in danger. He has vanished into a grief so complete the world no longer exists. When he finally returns on the 4th day, he is not the man who left. His eyes are hollow and his face gaunt. He has not eaten. He has not slept. His voice flat, he orders, "Prepare her funeral and her temple." The officials exchange nervous glances. Temple Caesar. He declares her divine, Diva Drusilla Panthea, goddess among gods, and commands the Senate to confirm it. It is unprecedented. Emperors may become gods after death, sometimes wives, but never a sister. The Senate has no choice but to obey. They convene. They debate in whispers. They know what happens to those who notice too much. The decree passes without opposition. Drusilla becomes Diva Drusilla Panthea. Temples receive her name. Priests begin composing prayers. Citizens are commanded to worship her alongside Jupiter and Juno. Her funeral becomes a spectacle of divine proportions. Her body is dressed in silk and gold, her face painted like a statue. She lies in state in the forum while all of Rome files past. Some genuinely mourn. Most are too terrified to do anything but weep. Caligula orders games in her honor. Gladiators fight. Chariots race beneath banners bearing her image. Hundreds of animals are sacrificed. Their blood runs through gutters while priests chant prayers to the newest goddess in heaven. But Caligula is not there. He sits alone in the palace, staring at nothing and speaking to no one. People die. Even the ones you love. Even the ones you call divine. Even the ones you need more than breath. Death takes everyone. And it does not care if you are Caesar. Something in Caligula breaks that can never be repaired. The illness after the fever changed him. Drusilla's death completes the transformation. When he finally emerges from mourning, he is different, colder, stranger, more dangerous. The mercy of his first months is gone. What remains is a god who learned he is not immortal and decided that if he must suffer, so will everyone else. He begins demanding acts that make no sense. He orders statues of himself to replace the gods and commands senators to worship him in temples. Citizens are required to bow when they speak his name. And then, one morning, he announces something that stuns even his closest advisors. He is taking the legions north, to Gaul, to the Channel coast. For what purpose, Caesar? An advisor asked carefully. Caligula's smile is cold. To finish what Alexander began. To conquer what no Roman has dared, and to prove that gods do not bow to nature. The advisor does not understand. Neither does the Senate. Neither does anyone in Rome. But Caligula is already moving. Orders fly through the palace. Legions are summoned. Ships are requisitioned. Supplies are gathered for a campaign that has no clear enemy and no clear objective. Within weeks, he is gone, marching north with thousands of soldiers who have no idea what they are marching toward. Rome watches him depart, filled with both relief and dread. Because when a grieving god commands an army, nobody knows what he will do with it. Chapter 9. The Sea That Would Not Obey. When madness meets the tide's cold breath, a god declares his war on death. The year is AD 39. Northern Gaul. The cliffs of the Channel coast rise pale and jagged against a grey sky, and below them stretches the sea, cold, endless, indifferent. And here, lined along the sand like toys arranged by a child, stand the legions of Rome. Thousands of soldiers in full battle gear, shields polished, armour gleaming, standards snapping in the salt wind. They're not marching toward an enemy camp. They're not preparing to storm a fortress. They're facing the ocean. Because Caligula has declared war on Neptune. Meet the emperor at the water's edge. He's 27 years old now, draped in a purple cloak that whips behind him like a living thing. His eyes are bright with something that might be vision or might be fever. He raises one arm toward the waves, and his voice carries over the wind. You have defied Rome long enough. The legionaries stand frozen. Not one of them moves. Because what do you do when your emperor screams at the sea? Here's the situation. Caligula planned an invasion of Britain. Ships were built. Troops were assembled. Supply lines stretched across Gaul like veins feeding a single beating heart. But the invasion never happened. Some say the troops mutinied. Some say the weather turned. Some say Caligula simply changed his mind. But he didn't march his legions all the way to the coast for nothing. The stakes? These soldiers have watched their emperor execute men for failing to laugh at his jokes. They've seen him order senators to run beside his chariot until they collapse. One wrong reaction, and your name goes on a list. Your family loses everything. Your head decorates a pike. So when Caligula turns to face them and shouts, "Gather your spoils," they obey. Thousands of armoured men drop to their knees in the surf. They scoop seashells into their helmets. Smooth stones, bits of driftwood, handfuls of wet sand. Tribune Cassius Chaerea, a veteran officer who despises every moment of this, bends down with shaking hands and picks up a shell no bigger than his thumbnail. His jaw clenches so tight it could crack teeth. Drums begin to roll, trumpets blare. The sound echoes off the cliffs like the announcement of a triumph. Because this is a triumph. Caligula has conquered the ocean. None dare laugh. Not one soldier cracks a smile. They fill their helmets with shells and stand at attention, while their emperor paces the shoreline like a general surveying his victory. These trophies will be carried to Rome, he shouts. They will be displayed in the temples. Let the Senate see what their emperor has accomplished, where even Alexander failed. Put yourself in their sandals. Every soldier here knows this is insane, but every soldier here also knows that calling it insane is death. So they stand with seashells in their hands and pretend this makes sense. It's like working for a boss who's lost his mind but still controls your paycheck, your pension, and whether you live to see tomorrow. A wave crashes. Foam swirls around imperial boots. Caligula doesn't move. He's staring at the horizon where grey water meets grey sky, and for just a moment something flickers across his face. Doubt? Triumph? The expression of a man who knows exactly how mad this looks and delights in forcing Rome to play along. He kneels at the tide line, presses his hand into the wet sand. His fingers sink deep, and when he lifts them, seawater fills the impression like blood filling a wound. "I am Neptune now," he whispers. The next wave comes in. Not large, just a normal wave doing what waves do. It slaps against his golden armor with a sound like a hand meeting a cheek. Water drips from the imperial breastplate. Caligula stares down at it, stands, turns, walks back up the beach without another word. Behind him, the legions remain frozen. The drums have stopped. The trumpets are silent. Only the wind and the waves make sound, and neither one of them bows. The order comes down that night. Pack everything. We're going back to Rome. Carts are loaded with seashells. Wagons creak under the weight of smooth stones. A soldier drops his helmet and shells scatter across the ground like dice. He scrambles to gather them, terror bright in his eyes, because losing your spoils might mean losing your life. Tribune Cassius Chaerea watches the emperor's tent from across the camp. Inside, lamplight flickers. Shadows move against the canvas. And then, cutting through the sound of waves and wind, comes laughter. High, wild, endless. The sound makes grown soldiers look away. Back in Rome, the Palatine Palace waits. Empty halls, silent statues, marble floors that echo with every footstep. But not for long. Chapter 10. The Palace of the Moon. In halls of gold, where shadows bend, the mortal plays at gods pretend. It's AD 40, and the Palatine Palace in Rome has become something else entirely. Something no one has words for yet. The marble halls that once echoed with dignified footsteps now pulse with a different energy. Torches burn at all hours. Incense smoke drifts through corridors like fog. And at the center of it all, moving through rooms like a fever dream made flesh, is Caligula. He's transforming the palace into a living pantheon, and he's casting himself in every role. One morning, he appears as Jupiter. Golden robes sweep the floor. A crown of oak leaves circles his head. Lightning bolts carved from ivory rest in his hands. Senators summoned to breakfast find themselves bowing to the king of gods, while he lounges on a throne and tosses grapes into his mouth. The next day, Apollo, white silk, a golden lyre, his hair arranged in perfect curls. He recites poetry he wrote himself, and courtiers weep with what they hope looks like appreciation. One man claps too enthusiastically, another not enough. Both receive visits from the Praetorian Guard that night. Then Venus, yes Venus. He wears makeup, women's clothing, jewelry that catches lamplight and scatters it across walls like scattered stars. A senator arrives for an audience and freezes in the doorway, his face going through expressions faster than anyone can count. Fear, confusion, the desperate calculation of what reaction keeps him alive. Caligula smiles. Do you not recognize the goddess of love? The senator drops to his knees. Divine lady, I am unworthy. Smart man. Throughout the palace, workers chisel away at divine statues. The heads of Jupiter, Apollo, Mars, all the gods that Rome has worshipped for centuries. They're being replaced. New faces carved in marble, all the same face. Caligula's. The context changes everything. In Rome, the emperor has always been first citizen, not god. Augustus played it carefully, accepting divine honors only in the provinces, never at home. Tiberius rejected the whole thing outright. But Caligula, he's erasing the line completely, not metaphorically, literally, with chisels and gold leaf and his own face staring down from every temple. Picture the mental state this creates. You're a Roman senator. You've spent your life studying philosophy, serving in the military, climbing the political ladder. You believe in the Republic, even if it's mostly theatre now. You believe in the gods, the way your father did, and his father before him. And now you're being summoned to dinner parties, where the emperor dresses as different deities and expects you to worship him. For real. Not as a joke, not as political theatre, as actual worship. The banquets stretch till dawn. Lamplight shifts through coloured glass, mimicking the movement of stars across the heavens. The ceiling is painted to look like the sky. Blue, gold, deep purple shadows. Musicians play until their fingers bleed. Dancers move through rooms until they collapse. A senator pours wine with trembling hands. He's 60 years old. He fought in Germania. He governed provinces. And here he is, playing servant to a 28-year-old who thinks he's Venus. Across the room, a poet recites praise through tears. Not tears of joy, tears of exhaustion, of fear, of something breaking inside that can't be fixed. His voice cracks on the word divine, and for one terrible second everyone freezes, wondering if that crack counts as disrespect. Caligula laughs, waves his hand. The party continues. The air grows thick, incense and sweat and perfume, and something else. Something like desperation mixed with madness. It coats your throat, makes it hard to breathe. But you keep smiling, keep bowing, keep pretending this is normal. Because what's the alternative? Outside the palace, Rome whispers. In the forum, merchants exchange news in low voices. In the Senate, old men stare at walls and remember when things made sense. In the barracks, soldiers sharpen their swords and say nothing. But inside? Inside the palace, the party never stops. Caligula moves through his pantheon like a child playing dress-up. Except the costumes cost more than most Romans earn in a lifetime, and the audience is compelled on pain of death. He's Jupiter in the morning, Apollo at noon, Venus by evening. Tomorrow? Who knows? Maybe Neptune again. Maybe Mars. Maybe he'll invent a new god entirely. One night, late, when most of the palace has collapsed into exhausted sleep, he stands alone in the great hall. Torches flicker. His shadow stretches across marble, tall enough to touch the painted ceiling. He turns slowly, looking at all the statues with his face. They finally see me, he whispers to empty air. Or maybe not empty. Maybe to the gods themselves. Maybe to the voice in his head that's been getting louder since he took the purple. Maybe to no one at all. The truth cuts deep. This isn't about believing he's divine. This is about forcing everyone else to pretend they believe it. It's about watching senators prostrate themselves before Jupiter wearing his face. It's about the power to rewrite reality and make Rome bow to the rewrite. It's not enough to rule Rome. He needs to be worshipped. In the imperial stables near the palace, torches flare around a white stallion, the most beautiful horse in Rome, maybe in the world. Its coat shines like moonlight on water. Its mane flows like silk. Caligula enters alone. No guards, no courtiers. Just him and the horse. He strokes its mane with something almost like tenderness. The animal nickers softly, pressing its nose against the imperial chest. And for just a moment, something crosses Caligula's face that looks almost human, almost vulnerable. Even beasts know their god, he whispers. The horse stamps its hoof. Gold-flecked oats spill from an ivory manger. Purple cushions line a marble stall. Servants in formal dress stand ready to attend to an animal like it's a senator. Caligula stares at the horse, then at the palace beyond the stable doors, then back at the horse. His lips curve into a smile. And somewhere in the Senate house, men who've served Rome their entire lives sleep uneasily, not knowing that tomorrow they'll receive the strangest summons of their careers. Chapter 11. The Horse That Spoke. When reason bows to hoofbeat sound, the noblest beast wears Rome's own crown. Rome, AD 40. The imperial stables near the Palatine Palace. This is where Incitatus lives. That's the horse's name, Latin for swift or at full gallop. and he's earned it. Fastest racehorse in Rome. Beautiful beyond measure. A stallion so perfect that crowds gasp when he enters the Circus Maximus. But Incitatus doesn't race anymore. He has more important duties now. Walk into his stall and your jaw drops. Marble floors, not wood, not packed earth, marble. The kind senators walk on in the forum. Walls painted with frescoes of running horses and distant mountains. An ivory manger carved with scenes of divine chariots racing across the heavens. Purple blankets embroidered with gold thread. A collar of precious stones that cost more than a soldier's lifetime wages. And servants. Human servants. In formal dress. They bow when the horse moves. They speak to him in respectful tones. They bring him meals on silver platters. Oats mixed with gold flakes that shimmer in lamplight. Fresh fruits. The finest hay imported from estates that once fed senators' tables. One attendant holds a golden cup of wine, not for himself, for the horse. Welcome to the madness. So what's happening? Caligula has decided his horse deserves honors, not as a pet, not as a prize racehorse, as a citizen, as a member of Rome's religious hierarchy, as something that should be respected, feared, and obeyed. First, he names Incitatus priest of his imperial cult. Let that sink in. The cult that worships Caligula as a living god now has a horse as its priest. A priest is supposed to perform rituals, make sacrifices, intercede with the divine. This horse eats gold-flecked oats and occasionally bites attendants who move too slowly. But nobody laughs. Nobody even smiles. Because the Praetorian Guard stands outside the stable door, and they're not smiling either. Caligula feeds the horse himself sometimes, stroking its mane, whispering things nobody else can hear. There's genuine affection there, maybe even love, the kind of uncomplicated loyalty a man can never get from senators who smile to his face and curse him behind closed doors. He is pure, Caligula says to a visiting dignitary. No ambition, no treachery, just beauty and speed and truth. The dignitary nods like this makes perfect sense. Then comes the announcement that changes everything. Caligula proclaims Incitatus consul of Rome. Consul, one of the two highest offices in the Republic. The position Julius Caesar held. The position Augustus transformed into something both sacred and political. The role that for centuries represented Rome's greatest honor, given to a horse. Some senators chuckle nervously when they first hear. A joke, surely. Imperial humor. Dark, strange, but still humor. They'll laugh politely. Caligula will laugh with them. And tomorrow, things will return to normal. Except they never laugh again. Because invitations arrive. Real invitations. Sealed with the imperial stamp. Summoning Rome's elite to Incitatus's inaugural banquet as consul of Rome. Picture receiving that scroll. You're a senator. Your grandfather was a senator. You fought in wars, governed provinces, prosecuted criminals, and now you're being formally invited to a dinner party hosted by a horse. What do? You go. Obviously you go. The banquet hall gleams with lamplight. Cushions are arranged in a semicircle. The best wine in Rome flows freely. Music plays. Incense burns. Everything looks normal except for the guest of honor standing in the center of the room. 4 legs, a tail, a mane braided with golden thread. Incitatus. The horse stands on a raised platform. Purple cloth drapes around him like a toga. Someone has placed a small wreath on his head. It keeps slipping. An attendant keeps adjusting it with trembling hands. Senators file in. Each one bows, some deeper than others. all wondering the same thing. How deep is deep enough to stay alive? Caligula enters last, grinning like a man who's just won a bet against the gods themselves. He gestures grandly. Please, honored citizens, take your places. The consul awaits. They sit. Cushions that would normally hold Rome's finest now hold Rome's most terrified. Wine is poured. The horse shifts its weight. Hooves click against marble. Someone starts to pour wine into the horse's golden cup. The animal lowers its head and drinks. Actually drinks. Wine dribbles down its chin and splashes on the purple cloth. Courtiers applaud. Some through tears, some through exhaustion, all through fear. A poet stands, recites a verse about the nobility of horses, how they carried Alexander to glory, how they serve gods and kings alike. His voice shakes on every third word. The horse neighs, loud, sudden. Several senators flinch, more applause, louder this time. Because maybe that neigh was approval. Maybe it was a statement. Maybe it was just a horse being a horse. But nobody's willing to take that chance. Caligula walks to the horse, lifts the golden cup to his own lips, drinks from the same cup the animal just used. Wine and horse saliva mix on imperial lips. Tomorrow, he says, voice carrying across the silent room, Rome will kneel to its purest citizen. Nobody speaks. Nobody moves. The horse stamps its hoof, and more wine spills. It pools on marble, like blood at an altar. The internal struggle must be crushing. You're watching your civilization collapse in real time. Everything your ancestors built, everything Rome stands for, reduced to this moment of bowing to livestock. But what choice do you have? Protest and die? Laugh and lose everything? Or bow and hope someone someday finds a way to end this? Thunder rolls from the bay, distant but growing closer. The sound makes lamplight flicker, and senators glance nervously at windows. Caligula turns toward the sound. His smile widens. Beyond the Palatine, somewhere south along the coast, something massive is taking shape. Something that's been in the works for months. Drums beat across the water. Rhythmic, steady. The sound of hundreds of men working through the night on something no one in Rome has ever seen before. The emperor listens, head tilted, eyes bright with whatever vision lives inside his skull. And in the Bay of Baiae, ships creak. Chains rattle. Wood groans under impossible weight. Chapter 12. The Bridge of Vanity. Where waves once ruled, now wood and chain, a god-king walks his pride's domain. Bay of Baiae, AD 39-40, southern Italy. Stretching across nearly 3 miles of open water is something that shouldn't exist. A floating bridge made of ships, hundreds of them. Merchant vessels, grain carriers, military transports, all lashed together across the bay to Puteoli. Their masts removed, their holds emptied, their decks covered with planks and dirt to create a roadway. The most expensive, most audacious, most completely unnecessary construction project Rome has ever seen. And Caligula is about to walk across it, dressed as Jupiter. Dawn breaks. The bridge stretches from shore to shore like a scar across blue water. Wooden planks creak. The whole thing rocks gently with the tide, 3 miles of impossible engineering that could collapse at any moment. On shore, priests gather. Incense burns. Drums roll. Trumpets blare. And then Caligula appears. Golden armor so polished it hurts to look at in the sun. A crown of golden oak leaves. In one hand, a scepter shaped like a lightning bolt. In the other, a golden orb representing the world itself. He is Jupiter, king of gods, master of thunder, and he's about to walk on water. What king compels the tides to yield, then drowns in praise upon his shield? The procession begins. Priests chant his divinity. Musicians play. Behind him, senators follow in formal dress, faces carefully neutral. Caligula steps onto the bridge. The ships creak. Wood groans. Chains pull taut. Everyone holds their breath. It holds. He walks slowly, deliberately. Every few steps he pauses, raises his arms, lets the crowd cheer. Halfway across he stops completely, turns in a full circle, arms spread wide. I am Neptune. I am Jupiter. The sea knows its master. The fleet beneath him rocks. Somewhere below, a chain snaps like breaking bones. Ships shift. The bridge tilts slightly left. Nobody panics. That would be fatal. They keep walking, keep chanting, keep pretending this is normal. Put yourself in the position of a senator behind him. You're 50 years old. You survived Tiberius. But you've never had to walk 3 miles across open water on hijacked merchant ships while your emperor screams at the ocean. And you can't help thinking, what happens if this collapses? How fast you'd sink in formal robes. How cold the water is. Whether anyone would bother fishing out your body. He reaches Puteoli on the far shore. Dismounts like he's conquered a nation. Accepts worship. Declares victory. Then turns around. Because once isn't enough. He parades back across, this time dressed as the returning god. Purple cloak instead of golden armor, a laurel crown instead of oak leaves. Different costume, same madness. The bridge sways with every step. The sun climbs higher, the air grows thick with heat and salt and sweat. Dawn to dusk. By the time he returns to Baiae, exhausted senators collapse on solid ground and kiss the earth. Caligula stands at the shore, looking back at his bridge. Something flickers across his face. Not satisfaction. Something harder to name. The expression of a man who's proven something to himself, but isn't sure what. Days later, he orders the bridge dismantled. Take it apart. Return the ships. Let the sea reclaim its space. The whole thing was never about keeping the bridge. It was about proving he could build it. About the power to create miracles and destroy them on a whim. Storms scatter the remains months later. Nature erases what madness built. But there's a problem. The bridge cost more than anyone predicted. The imperial treasury is running low. Caligula's spectacles have drained Rome's wealth like blood from a wound. So he auctions off everything. Back in Rome, the palace empties. Furniture that belonged to Augustus, jewelry worn by Livia, art collected by generations of Caesars. All of it for sale to the highest bidder. Senators gather, not sure if this is opportunity or trap. They bid cautiously at first. Then Caligula himself starts bidding. On his own property. He outbids everyone, drives prices higher and higher, not to keep the items, but to prove no one can surpass him. Not in power, not in wealth, not even in buying back what he already owns. A senator bids 50,000 sesterces for a golden cup. 100,000, Caligula announces, grinning. The senator bows out. The emperor buys his own cup for twice its value, then puts it back in the auction and does it again. It's not about money. It's about control. About bending reality until even commerce stops making sense. Lightning splits the horizon over the bay, the kind that comes before storms. In Rome, in the shadows near the palace, 3 men meet. One is Praetorian tribune Cassius Chaerea, the same man who gathered seashells on a beach in Gaul. who walked behind a horse dressed as consul, who's watched every humiliation, every execution, every impossible spectacle. The other two are colleagues, fellow officers, men who've served Rome faithfully and watched it descend into something they no longer recognize. They don't speak plans aloud. Too dangerous. Instead, they exchange glances, brief nods, the silent communication of soldiers who fought together. Cheria's hand rests on his sword hilt, not threatening, just present, a reminder that some solutions are older than empires. Lightning flashes again. Thunder follows seconds later. In the palace above them, Caligula laughs at something. The sound carries through stone corridors, high and strange. The three men separate, melt back into shadows. Each returns to his post. But something has changed. Some line has been crossed that can't be uncrossed. The storm is coming. Chapter 13. The Blades in the Corridor. In marble halls where shadows creep, the God King falls, and Rome won't weep. Palatine Hill, Rome. Midday, January 24th, AD 41. The Palatine Games are in full swing. Outside, crowds cheer actors and acrobats in a temporary wooden theatre. Drums pound, flutes trill. The air smells of roasted meat and wine, and thousands of bodies packed too close. Inside the palace, marble corridors hum with footsteps. A covered gallery connects the theatre to the palace, a private passage reserved for the emperor and his guard. Stone arches, lattice openings letting in stripes of sunlight, the kind of place where sound echoes strangely and shadows pool in corners. This is where everything ends. The emperor approaches. Caligula walks at the center of a small procession. Attendants, secretaries, praetorian tribunes. He's 28 years old, 4 years on the throne, 4 years that have bent Rome into shapes it doesn't recognize. Sunlight filters through the lattice, striping the marble floor. The air smells faintly of torches, perfume, and cold iron. At his side walks Cassius Chaerea, veteran tribune, the same man who suffered every mockery, every insult, every humiliation for months. Caligula has called him weak, unmanly, given him obscene watchwords to prove the emperor can make him say anything, endure anything, and still smile. Today is no different. Caligula smirks, lifts his hand for the ritual kiss, then flicks it in an obscene gesture. Laughter ripples through the procession. Chaerea's jaw tightens. The insult lands. But this time something is different. This time, he's not alone. The passage narrows. The crowd thins. Guards lag behind to manage petitioners. Attendants slow to adjust their robes. Secretaries pause to gather scrolls. For the first time all day, Caligula is nearly alone. The perfect moment. Chaerea meets the eyes of fellow conspirators, hidden among the escort. Sabinus, Aquila, others whose names history will record or forget. They've planned this, rehearsed the movements, calculated the risks against the certainty that Rome cannot survive another year of this. Put yourself in Chaerea's sandals. You're a soldier. You've served Rome for decades, killed enemies on battlefields from Germania to Africa, but you've never killed your own emperor. Never ended a life that supposedly carries divine blood. And yet, here you are, sword at your hip, hatred in your heart, the knowledge that if you don't move now, you never will. Chaerea moves fast. His blade flashes in the striped sunlight. The first strike lands sharp and sudden, just below the neck. Not fatal, not yet, but enough to draw blood, enough to prove that gods can bleed. Caligula gasps, staggers backward, shock widening his eyes. His hand flies to his neck and comes away red. Then another conspirator plunges a dagger into his chest. And another. Still others follow. Dozens of blows rain down. The kind of overkill that comes from months of pent-up rage finally finding release. The Emperor's cries echo against the marble vault. Not divine pronouncements. Not commands that reshape reality. Just the sounds a man makes when steel opens his body in too many places to count. He collapses to the floor. His golden cloak darkens with blood spreading like spilled wine. His voice breaks, half curse, half disbelief. The expression of someone realizing that everything he believed about himself was wrong. For a moment, even the killers freeze, staring at the ruin of what Rome had called a god. He's just a man, bleeding, dying, mortal. Outside the gallery, attendants scatter. Some flee toward the theatre, shouting that the Emperor is dead. Others slam doors, not knowing who might be next. Chaos ripples through corridors like a stone dropped in still water. The conspirators stand over the body, breathing hard, hands shaking. They've killed a Caesar. There's no going back, no forgiveness. Either Rome thanks them or Rome executes them. Cheria wipes his blade on purple cloth. His face is blank, carved from stone. Footsteps thunder closer. Voices shout orders. The Praetorian Guard is coming. Not all of them were in on the conspiracy. Blood pools on marble, spreads slowly toward the latticed wall, where sunlight still streams in, indifferent to what just happened. In another chamber of the palace, a heavy curtain stirs. Behind it, Claudius, uncle to the fallen emperor, trembles in hiding. 50 years old, limps when he walks, stammers when he speaks. The family embarrassment. The one they kept alive because he seemed too harmless to matter. He's heard the chaos, the footsteps, the screams. So he hides, presses himself behind the curtain. His tunic is already smeared with dust from crawling into this alcove. His breath comes short and shallow. The boots of soldiers thunder closer. Voices shout conflicting orders. The curtain quivers with each footstep that passes. Claudius closes his eyes, prays to gods he's not sure are listening, thinks about his daughters, his books, the life he might have had if he'd been born into a different family. The footsteps stop, right outside the curtain. Someone breathing hard on the other side of the fabric. The smell of sweat and iron. The sound of a sword being drawn from its sheath. A hand reaches for the curtain's edge. Chapter 14. The Emperor Behind the Curtain. When power falls and shadows shift, the fool becomes the throne's new gift. The curtain rips aside. Claudius flinches, throws his arms up like a child expecting a beating. His whole body trembles. Dust rises from his tunic. A Praetorian soldier stands there, sword drawn, blood on his armor. Not his blood. For a moment, neither man moves. The soldier stares at Claudius. This trembling, stammering figure cowering in shadows. This man who spent 50 years being the family joke. The one they kept alive because he wrote books about Etruscans and seemed too pathetic to threaten anyone. The soldier raises his sword. Claudius whimpers, "But please, I wasn't." Another soldier appears. Then another, searching the palace room by room, finding witnesses, eliminating problems. One of them kneels, not to strike, to bow. "Emperor," he says. The word hangs in the air like smoke. Claudius blinks. "What?" "Emperor," the soldier repeats louder. The others echo him. "Emperor, Emperor." The word transforms everything. fear into allegiance, a cowering uncle into a solution, because power vacuums get filled fast, and the Praetorian Guard understands something the senators are still debating. Rome needs an emperor, not eventually, now, and Claudius is right here. Imperial blood, Caesar's nephew, harmless enough that nobody will fight over him, weak enough that the guard can control him. Perfect. More soldiers arrive. Word spreads like fire. They found someone with the right bloodline, someone who won't cause problems. Claudius is hauled to his feet, not roughly, almost gently. His legs shake. His stammer gets worse. This is madness. But they're already moving him through corridors, past the gallery where Caligula's body lies cooling, past attendants pressed against walls, past chaos into something stranger. Authority. In the streets outside, the news hits like a thunderclap. The emperor is dead. Caligula, the god who walked on water and made his horse consul, dead. Senators gather in emergency session, voices rising in excited whispers that maybe, just maybe, this is their chance to restore the Republic. The Republic. That beautiful dream that died with Julius Caesar, but keeps haunting Rome like a ghost that won't stay buried. They debate. They argue. They quote Cicero and invoke the glory of old days when Rome was governed by laws instead of the whims of men who thought they were gods. But while they debate, the Praetorian Guard acts. They prefer a Caesar they can control, an emperor who owes them everything. Someone who understands the purple comes with strings attached. Claudius is escorted to the Praetorian camp, given a throne, given wine, given assurances that everything will be fine as long as he's reasonable. Reasonable means generous. Reasonable means gold. Bargains bloom like mold. Promises for loyalty. Gold for silence. Scrolls change hands. Witnesses suddenly remember events differently. Cassius Chaerea, the man who struck first, finds himself in an interesting position. He killed an emperor. That's either heroism or treason, depending entirely on who wins the power struggle happening right now. Put yourself in his boots. Hours ago you were a soldier, then an assassin making history. Now you're waiting to find out if history calls you a liberator or a criminal. The answer comes fast. Claudius, newly crowned, surrounded by advisors who speak in his ear like wasps, makes his first imperial decision. Execute the assassins. Not because he loved Caligula, but because letting them live sends the wrong message. It says killing emperors is acceptable, and Claudius, who never wanted this throne, now has to protect it. So Chaerea dies, the man who gathered seashells and suffered humiliation and finally struck back, dies on orders from the emperor he accidentally created. Power doesn't care about justice. Power cares about power. The conspirators thought they were saving Rome. Instead, they just changed which face wears the purple. Meanwhile, Caligula's corpse lies near the theatre. Golden cloak stiff with dried blood, eyes still open. Servants move him, half burned in a shallow grave. No grand funeral, no deification, just quick disposal of a problem nobody wants to think about. His wife Caesonia is killed. His infant daughter's skull smashed against a wall. The imperial family line ends in blood and screaming. This is how Rome works. This is how it's always worked. Outside the Praetorian camp, crowds gather. Then the announcement. Claudius is Caesar. Claudius, the stammering historian. Claudius, who hid behind a curtain and became emperor because he happened to be there. The crowds chant. But the chant is strange. confused. Half of them don't even know who Claudius is. Inside, Claudius listens to his name echoing across Rome, realizes it isn't enthusiasm he hears, it's uncertainty, fear, people clinging to any authority because the alternative is chaos. Nobody wanted him, nobody chose him, nobody believes in him, but he's emperor anyway. The statues on the wall seem to watch him breathe. Stone faces of ancestors who earned their power through conquest and cunning and strength. And here he is, a man who got the throne by hiding behind a curtain. He takes a long drink of wine. His hand shakes less than it did an hour ago. "Get me a scribe," he says. His stammer is almost gone. "We have work to do," because placeholders can become permanent. Compromises can become dynasties. And sometimes the unexpected emperor is exactly what Rome needs. But there's a problem, a question hanging over everything. What do you do with the memory of a dead god? How do you erase 4 years of madness without admitting Rome bowed to it? How do you make a city forget what it desperately wants to forget? In the Senate House, men are already whispering, already planning, already reaching for chisels. The city holds its breath, waiting to see what Rome does with the name Caligula. Chapter 15. The Mirror of Rome. When names are carved, then carved away, does silence kill what shadows say? Rome, AD 41, the days after. The sun rises over a city that doesn't know how to feel. Relief, shame, all of it mixed together like wine and water. In the forum, a mason climbs scaffolding before dawn, hammer and chisel in hand. No one hired him officially, but he knows what needs to be done. Everyone knows. He finds an inscription. Marble, public. The letters spell Gaius Caesar Germanicus, Caligula's real name. All of it carved deep into stone meant to last forever. The chisel bites into marble. Chips fly. Tap, tap, tap. The name disappears, letter by letter, as if Rome itself has decided that forgetting is survival. No official damnatio memoriae is declared, because admitting Caligula deserves condemnation means admitting Rome followed him, worshipped him, applauded when he made a horse consul. Better to just forget. Across the city, chisels rasp through marble. Statues lose their faces. Inscriptions become blank spaces. But it's not just stone that changes. In a theatre, actors rewrite plays. Lines that made audiences laugh nervously now feel dangerous. By tonight, the play will be different. Memory edited in real time. In the Temple of Mars, a priest adjusts prayers. Verses about the divine emperor simply aren't there anymore. Historians measure each word carefully. They describe Caligula's reign in cautious language. Not too harsh, not too detailed. Forgetting becomes a civic virtue. Put yourself in the position of a Roman citizen. Your job security depended on praising Caligula. Your family's safety required bowing to his madness. You gathered seashells because the emperor declared war on Neptune. And now you have to pretend that made sense, or pretend it never happened. So you forget, actively, deliberately, because remembering means admitting, and admitting means shame. But memory leaks. In taverns after dark, men whisper stories. The emperor who conversed with the moon, who called his sister his wife, who made senators run beside his chariot, who fought the ocean and claimed victory. These stories spread like water finding cracks, exaggerated with each telling. Mothers warn children, behave or Caligula's ghost will take you. The stories refuse to die. They survive despite Rome's best efforts to bury them. If monsters grow where power feeds, who sows the soil? Who plants the seeds? That's the question Rome doesn't want to answer. Because Caligula didn't appear from nothing. He was raised in this system, taught by Tiberius, who learned from Augustus, who built his power on Julius Caesar's corpse. Every emperor taught the next that power has no limits, that Rome will accept anything, that crowds will cheer madness if you frame it as divinity. Caligula just took the lesson further than anyone expected. So who's the monster? The boy who became emperor at 24 and lost his mind? Or the system that gave him unlimited power and expected sanity? Rome doesn't debate this. Rome buries it along with the statues. Claudius rules now, competent, careful. He builds aqueducts instead of floating bridges. He conquers Britain instead of Neptune. But the precedent remains that Rome will accept anything. Future emperors take notes. Years pass. Decades, centuries. Rome falls. The empire fragments. The Palatine Palace crumbles. But the stories linger. Centuries later, the Roman Forum. Ruins half buried in dust. A boy kneels beside a toppled column. Maybe 10 years old, curious, bored while his father conducts business. He scrapes at moss covering the marble. His fingers find carved letters, old, deep, almost worn away. G-A-I. That's all that remains. 3 letters. The beginning of Gaius, Caligula's birth name, the one Rome tried so hard to erase. He traces them. The marble is smooth where it's not broken. Someone carved this with care. Someone meant it to last forever. Father, he calls. Whose name was this? His father looks up, walks over, sees the letters. His expression hardens. He glances around the silent forum, at the broken arches, the fallen columns. We do not speak of him, he whispers. The boy frowns. But who? The mad emperor, his father says quietly. Caligula, the one who thought he was a god. We do not speak his name. Not here, not anywhere. He pulls the boy away from the column. They walk away. The boy looks back once, at the 3 letters that refuse to disappear completely, despite centuries of erosion and Rome's best efforts to forget. The wind moves through broken arches, whistles across fallen stones. The boy shivers without knowing why. Some memory buried so deep it lives in blood rather than books. Some warning about power and madness and the price of looking away. His father walks faster, doesn't look back. Above them, clouds move across the sun, and somewhere beneath the dust and debris, marble still holds letters no one wanted to preserve but couldn't quite destroy. Because that's the thing about history. You can erase names, destroy statues, rewrite prayers, but you can't kill what actually happened. You can only choose whether to learn from it or repeat it. Rome chose forgetting. The lesson died with the inscriptions, and future tyrants smiled. These historical deep dives reveal the wild humanity behind famous names. If you're craving more stories that make the past feel alive and relatable, you found your channel.